Well, it was my spring break this week. Spring break is so fun. And I got to watch a lot of stuff. I set up the new smart TV my dad got us this week, and I found it super convenient so far. I got to watch some regular show in Steven Universe, which is always a fun time. And of course, Dinosaurs. Yeah, you know this show.
Honey, I'm home.
This was a TGIF sitcom back in the early 90s produced by Michael Jacobs of Boy Meets World fame and the Jim Henson Company, well known for, well, isn't it obvious? This was one of the very first projects the company pursued after Jim Henson's death, but it still carried the essence of his production style in spades. Creative, talented puppetry, and a sharp sense of humor. Anyways, since it's gonna be important to the episode I'm about to talk about today, remember Barney and Friends? Yeah, Barney the dinosaur. From this debut all the way back in 1988, he's been known for his happy-go-lucky, almost too optimistic outlook on life. Yeah, sure, it's easy for kids to digest, but I'd rather them be real like what Sesame Street usually does because it honestly creates a much bigger impact instead of acting like literally everything is positive. Not everything in this world is positive. A lot of it sucks. I'd rather be real and positive than one or the other. But anyways, as we all know, Barney was a huge success and his show ran all the way from 1992 to 2009-ish. A bit more if you count a rerun season. But you know what's not nearly as smile-filled as Barney's cut and dried routine? Legal issues! The then owners of Barney, Lyric Studios, also known previously as the Lions Group, were incredibly protective of their brand, and since anti-Barney humor was prevalent in the 90s, they got a lot of shit for it. Such as when they went up against the San Diego Chicken for his comedy routine of beating up a dinosaur, and then ended up losing against him because the parody was different enough from the original character to count as a fair use parody. Sounding pretty familiar, isn't it? Of course, these issues still exist to this day, especially on this website, what with content ID matching, but some companies being more protective than other of their brands, but I find it really funny how a lot of Barney media can be found completely unedited on YouTube without a threat of a takedown in sight. In general, I think it's better for a legal team to judge for themselves whether a use is fair or not before taking action instead of blindly doing so. But that's just my silly personal opinion. But back to the point, of course anti-Barney humor was prevalent in the 90s, so much so that there's even a Wikipedia article on it. Tons of shows mock Barney, from Animaniacs to The Simpsons to, of course, Dinosaurs. This episode in question, Georgie Must Die, is actually technically the last episode of the series in airing order. It aired after the real final episode premiered in syndication. But man, oh man, did they hit the nail on the head with this parody. Baby Sinclair, whose voice may or may not sound familiar, becomes yet another fan of prehistoric sensation Georgie the Hippo, who, because this is already a world populated with dinosaurs, serves as a stand-in for the lovable purple dinosaur. Of course, Earl Sinclair, Baby's father and primary protagonist of the series, is nearly fed up with Georgie's non-stop video escapades and proceeds to destroy the Georgie tape Baby was watching. Baby's only willing to forgive Earl if he gets the kind of hug only Georgie can provide. Obviously, he's incredibly reluctant and doesn't even think it's possible, but just as luck, turns out Georgie is having a special meet and greet that day. But the line is ridiculously long, so he plots a better plan with his friend Roy. Realizing he can do a decent enough Georgie impression to fool Jr., Earl decides to bring the Georgie experience directly to him, complete with his backdoor pals. Turns out the Georgie studio doesn't take kindly to even a costume party in the courtesy of someone's house though, and Earl is promptly arrested for copyright infringement. Georgie decides to give him a personal visit, and it turns out he's not such a good role model after all. He paints an image for himself as a corrupted dictator of his own world who doesn't take kindly towards anyone who stands against him. With his market dominance of tapes and merchandise, he plans to usurp the world's power by going as far as secretly implanting receivers during dental checkups to transmit Georgie's programming directly into children's minds. Earl is, quickly enough, saved by a group known as the Parents Resistance, whose end goal is pretty self-explanatory. After some convincing with his newfound knowledge of his evil in tow, Earl joins their plan to take down the Georgie Empire and sets back off to his house to prepare. Roy meets up with him there, and he decides to join their effort despite the danger it entails, since after all, Danger is his mother's maiden name turned his own middle name. After a fond farewell to his wife Fran, Earl and the team set out to stop Georgie once and for all. Roy makes his first move in the Georgie studios. Earl sets things up. He asks the hippo himself for an autograph, though turns out the pen he was using had knockout gas in it, and that buys them just enough time for Earl to go on stage himself as Georgie. He understands that the kids love Georgie, but decides to expose him for the greater good of society. However, not too long after, Georgie himself emerges and gets into a fight with Earl. As they fight off stage, Roy decides to sing the Commodore's classic, Brick House, to buy some time.
Hey, have a heart. You wouldn't punch out the most beloved character on children's TV. This is for all you parents at home. Yuck, yuck.
So the day is saved thanks to Earl. Georgie is finally arrested. Does he even have a real identity? Anyways, Earl also receives the key to the city, which probably won't be useful when they all die in the Dino-pocalypse. Just saying. As the technical final episode of Dinosaurs, this show definitely went out with a bang. It's a very funny and clever episode, and most certainly relatable to the parents who had to suffer the wrath of Barney for so long. And it goes to show how little we question or challenge children's media as long as it keeps them happy, even to this day. Unless it's an offense serious enough to warrant our attention, we just let annoying things be no matter how much we detest them. We're kinda odd like that. Personally, I think children deserve much better than Barney. They deserve programming that satiates their needs and keeps them happy, but also challenges them enough that they can be considered quality programming in their own right. But of course, the studios have other plans, and hell, they even planned a relaunch of this franchise set for a 2017 premiere, but nothing came of that, so I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens for now. But in the meantime, I think we can all sit back, relax, and enjoy some quality programming that's built to last like Sesame Street. See you guys on the flip side. Oh, she's a brick house. Yeah, she's mate, just letting it all hang out. Oh, she's a brick house.